Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee LaValle McKenna. I'm a therapist and shamanic healer. And today I want to talk about multiple intelligence. There are so many different ways that we can be smart in our lives. But when we think about intelligence, most of us think about reading, writing, and math, which is most of what modern school focuses on. Intellectual intelligence. And there are so many other ways to be smart, gifted, talented, besides intellectual skill. And depending on how your life is organized, how you spend your time, what you do for work, intellectual intelligence may be one of the least used. For many people, intellectual intelligence is not important compared to the other skill sets that might be highly developed in their lives. Multiple intelligences theory was developed by Howard Gardner out of Harvard University in the 80s and 90s. Gardner's written about 20 books, and I'll leave a link to his website and some of that work in the show notes. So this idea of multiple intelligences has really taken off over the years because I think it's very true. So depending on whose theory or system you look at, there's generally considered 7 or 8 different kinds of core intelligence people can have. So one way to be smart is linguistic intelligence. People with an ability to express themselves either verbally or in writing. Someone who has linguistic intelligence often has a strong awareness of others and can easily understand others' viewpoints and make themselves understood. Another way to be intelligent is logical intelligence. This is the ability to solve complex problems or divide problems into smaller tasks that they can then solve those smaller tasks to get to the larger solution. Someone with logical intelligence is usually well organized and may be self-disciplined. People with logic intelligence are often really good at math. Logical intelligence has always fascinated me. I've always been attracted to men who are gearheads. They can take apart cars and put them back together. They can figure out what's broken when something's not working and make it work again. That is not a skill I have. Another way to be smart is kinesthetic intelligence. And kinesthetic relates to your body awareness in space and time. So a great sense of depth, distance, the ability to control your body movements with precision and ease. So kinesthetic intelligence is anyone who's athletic, a dancer, if you have good coordination and motor skills. I would extend that to say if you're good at driving, working with heavy machinery. I think one of the joys of watching people play sports or dance is to appreciate their kinesthetic intelligence, how easily and beautifully they move their bodies. I have a friend who's a heavy equipment operator, and watching him move giant boulders with that machine is amazing. It's like the machine is an extension of his body. I've tried to mess around with that thing, and I can't make it do what he does. Others have spatial intelligence. This is the ability to imagine, create, often in drawing, but certainly also in the physical world from a design standpoint. So spatial intelligence is designing or organizing things in a way that makes sense, that's functional, that's beautiful, that's creative or artistic. So certainly architecture, web design, gaming, interior decorating, or garden design. So spatial intelligence is how we create, organize, or design our space. Then there's musical intelligence. So people with musical intelligence have a deep appreciation and creativity in how to put sound together in a creative or beautiful way. If you're very musically intelligent, you might even be able to hear a song and then play it yourself. If you saw the Elton John movie Rocket Man, he's applying to get into the Musical Academy of London from this small town that he came from, and he doesn't bring any sheet music. And the woman says, "What are you going to play?" And he sits down and plays this incredibly complicated classical song. And she says, "How did you learn that?" And he said, "Well, I heard you playing it when I came in." I had a crush on a boy once who had that skill. He could listen to a song and play it on the piano. So certainly anyone who writes, plays, performs, or composes music has musical intelligence. You may have musical intelligence just if you appreciate music. In fact, it's important to note that We all have levels of intelligence in all these different areas. And to continue to talk from a musical standpoint, our own unique intelligence with each of us is probably more like a musical chord. We might have some spatial intelligence, some linguistic intelligence, some musical intelligence, and they all organize themselves in a unique configuration that's us. I am not musically intelligent. In fact, auditory in general is one of my weakest skills. Although I can talk for 2 hours without taking a breath, I really have a hard time remembering things that are just said to me verbally. I'm a visual person, so I do much better when I see things written down. In fact, I'm not very sensitive to sound in general. So there's also interpersonal intelligence. And interpersonal intelligence is about the ability to interact effectively with other people. Interpersonal intelligence often brings with it a sense of responsibility and practicality, an ability to listen and effectively communicate. So people that are good teachers, good leaders, coaches, parents, good at organizing or helping people, those are signs of interpersonal, or what I would call social intelligence. And then there's intrapersonal intelligence, INTRA. Intrapersonal intelligence is about introspection. It's a deep relationship with yourself. It's the intelligence of introversion, of contemplation, meditation. If you enjoy reading or gathering information and your own thoughts about it, if you enjoy solitude and your own creativity, that's intrapersonal intelligence. Intra is intelligence that's into myself. So there's lots of ways to be smart in the world. And the basic divisions that I see within people are aspects of themselves that they can be developed in is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, sexual, professional, and creative. Emotional intelligence is your ability to be in touch with what you're feeling and the feelings of others. It's compassion, empathy, awareness of your own felt experience. And felt experience has a wide range within it. There's our emotional feeling self based on past experience and relationality to others and the world. So emotionally, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the people and circumstances of our life. But there's also a more highly developed emotional or felt experience, which is deeply tied to intuition and instinct and our own unique interactive experience with the world, the flavors, colors, textures, temperatures, our own particular preferences. Do I like dark, creamy chocolate, or do I like hot, spicy foods or cold, icy drinks? Do I appreciate color, sound, body felt connection with others? Our emotional felt experience can draw us toward things with desire or move us away from them if they're things we don't like. And certainly emotional intelligence can help us really understand and interact more effectively and more deeply with others. I would add spiritual intelligence. I had a client this week who actually had very little interaction with his parents. In fact, his father barely spoke English, and he didn't remember having a conversation with his father until he was a teenager. He struggled a lot with addiction and spent some time in jail, and is really working on his underdeveloped emotional and relational intelligence, but is incredibly spiritually intelligent. Is just naturally deeply connected with the life force and the life energy that flows through all things. He has a relationship with the trees and plants in his yard. When we do inner journey work in spiritual psychology, he's able to drop into this place of complete trust and groundedness that he really struggles with in ordinary life with other people, but has this deep and profound connection with the universe. Highly developed spiritual intelligence. Didn't graduate from high school. Excellent with animals, able to really tap into the spirit of non-human life forms and totally resonate with them. spiritual intelligence. I would like to offer sexual intelligence. Might be an aspect of kinesthetic intelligence, but it's much more relational. The ability to evoke, enjoy, create, the intensity, the intimacy of interpersonal sexual relations. To feel into the pleasure centers of another person and your own. Between my two children, I spent about 5 years at this really big cooperative preschool. There was about 90 families there. And there were these particular preschool teachers who were incredibly intelligent with little children. Not just the ability to calm and soothe them, but actually to evoke the child's best self. One of my favorite teachers there was Rima. She was Jordanian, an amazing cook, was like the Pied Piper with little children, very old world soul. Reading, writing, math, not her thing, but she was gifted with the children. You don't want to cross her path if you were a grown-up, but she was infinitely patient with the children. Everyone is intelligent in their own unique way. We all have gifts and talents to offer to the world, and it's very important to know what they are and to appreciate them, to cultivate them in ourselves and in others. I use this analogy a lot. I often see people like an audio mixing board with all those dials and toggles on them. We each have ways that we're highly developed, and we each have ways that we're underdeveloped. An accurate self-assessment is really helpful. Often we focus just on where we have deficits. And that's not a helpful balance because we can use our strengths to be able to help us develop the places where we might be challenged. I know for myself, I was completely emotionally underdeveloped when I started my personal growth path, but I've always been super social, a lot of social intelligence, being able to interact with other people. So therapy was really helpful for me. Developing healthy, supportive relationships, and also my own introspection, my own contemplative nature. I like to spend time with myself, with my own thoughts. And that combination of my own introspection and my social interaction with others actually allowed me to develop my emotional intelligence. When I went into my first therapy session in my mid-20s, the therapist said, "What do you want to get out of this work?" And I said, "I want to get feelings. I don't have any." I have lots of feelings now, and it's good. So there's lots of ways to be smart besides the intellectual information that they teach in school. I'm an excellent test taker, and I'm going to tell you, it really has not served me outside of an academic setting. It's too bad because I could make a living taking tests. But you can't make a living taking tests, at least not one that I'm interested in. And to add to the mix, it's also important to learn about yourself, how you learn. And these can go along with these different intelligences that we have. So some people are verbal learners. They like to hear things spoken to them. This was a huge problem with my ex-husband. He had an amazing verbal memory. If you said something to him, he would remember it. You say something to me, if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it. That was a really painful source of conflict for us. So for me, writing, seeing things written down, seeing things drawn out, I'm a visual learner. Very important. Pictures, charts, words, very helpful for me. Some people are physical or kinesthetic learners. They need to be able to do things, to practice things with their body. Some people are social learners. They learn best in groups when they're interacting, receiving information, teaching it back to other people, discussing it. That kind of verbal social learning works for a lot of people. Some people prefer to learn in solitude. My son is actually loving Zoom school. He has an incredible intellectual memory, and he loves to just read stuff, and then he can regurgitate it. He doesn't have to do all the other classroom stuff that he doesn't dig. And some people learn best with logical reasoning, problem-solving systems. School, as we know it today for most children, is a very modern thing. It wasn't until 1918, just 100 years ago, that every state required students to complete elementary school. Before that, most children worked, unless you were in a wealthy family and could pay for your children to go to school. And some early public schools in the U.S. didn't even focus on math and reading. They taught virtues and religion, family values, and community. Girls might have been taught to read, but they weren't taught to write. So the idea of what we think it means to be intelligent is incredibly limited and often informed by an education system that is relatively new. And in my experience, it is so important to appreciate, to explore, and to develop all of who we are in the world. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, creatively, professionally, sexually. All these areas of our life where we interact with others, the physical world, our communities, and ourselves, way beyond reading, writing, and math. So consider where you are highly developed, where you are underdeveloped, where are you smart, and where do you need to grow? Excited to create tools to allow easy accessibility to the work of spiritual psychology? Just completed our first digital course, Intro to Shamanism. And that course is going to be available sometime in February on our Kajabi platform, Open Door Growth. And if you'd like to set up a free 30-minute consultation to see how spiritual psychology might benefit you, shoot me an email, info@reneemckenna.com. Thank you to my generous supporters on Patreon. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.